Welcome to Ohio FFA Career Connection. Throughout this series, we will explore just a few of the vast career opportunities in Ohio agriculture. Whether you want to work on a farm or in an office, laboratory, field, or classroom, FFA prepares us to be successful. Together, we'll get to know various professionals and learn how we can jumpstart our future careers while still in FFA. Let's get started. I'm glad to be visiting with Dan Klingman, the Manager of Educational Programming for the Lincoln Electric Company. Thank you for joining us, Dan.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start by learning a little bit about your background. How did you come to work in the welding industry?
Well, being in high school, I have an identical twin brother, and it was pretty clear that he decided that he was going to take after my grandfather in law enforcement. And my father actually retired from Lincoln Electric, with most of his time being there in the education department. And he had mentioned, why don't you try the Lincoln Electric Welding School and see what you think? And we had done, a lot of welding on our small farm that we live on, and kind of been around welding for quite a while. But I went to the Lincoln Electric Welding School and took the comprehensive course there, and actually really enjoyed it. And after 16 weeks of that, still didn't know what I wanted to do. And so my father said, well, why don't you put an application in at Lincoln? It ended up being one of the highest number of hiring of employees at the company. And so I started at the manufacturing floor as a welder, and then moved on to a robotic applications, where I ended up operating a bunch of the welding robots around the plant as well.
Now, how has that career evolved? Did you stay in the same position at your 26 years at Lincoln Electric? Tell us a little bit about the progression of careers within the company.
Sure. So it started with the production floor as a welder. And then at that time, there was only one robotic welding system on our manufacturing floor, if you can imagine that. Now there's multiple units. But I got involved with the setup of the second robotic system, and I was sent over to our automation division for training. One thing, when you get into the robotics welding, it's great to have the welding background already, because if you don't know what to tell the robot to do, it makes the job very difficult. So we would like to have somebody with a welding background and teach them how to program the robotic systems. But I ended up doing that for about 4 years. And then I went into our application engineering department as a technician. And as a technician, we would set up customers' parts, develop procedures. I also got involved with our the large welding shows that took place around the country. And so I started traveling at that time. And we would go to the shows, set up the equipment, demonstrate the equipment, and then break it all back down. But the neat thing was I was still able to continue with the robotics. It's one of those things where if you don't use it, you lose it. So during that time as an application technologist, I was able to continue to use the robotics cell that we had in that lab. And after about 2 years of that, opening came up in our automation division. So now, instead of doing these applications manually, they were all going to be done on a robotic system. And so that was a different aspect of it, but I had the robotic background and the welding experience already. So when I got into automation division, I continued to travel quite a bit. And that's one interesting aspect of the job. I mean, there's a lot of traveling opportunities, and I really got to see a lot of the country. Prior to being at Lincoln, I never really had traveled the country. So that was a great experience to see that. And I spent a lot of time, when we talk about agriculture, I spent a lot of time in the heavy fabrication companies, the larger companies, developing procedures, setting up robotic systems, troubleshooting them. And I did that for about 4 years. And then an opening came up in our training department. And the neat thing about the training department is you kind of get to do a little bit of everything, right? You still get involved with the automation. You still get involved with all the latest technology. I mean, the welding technology is changing very rapidly. So I was able to continue to do that, and started off doing a lot of our distributor training programs. We had a new product that was launching at that time. So that was a focus of the newest technology in submerged arc welding. And just kind of worked my way up, got involved with working with the skilled trades. and also got involved with working and supporting our motorsports group. So Lincoln sponsors a lot of the series for racing, whether it's NASCAR, IndyCar, NHRA, and we provide the trackside welding at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I've been doing that since 2014, or I'm sorry, 2006. And then starting in 2020, I took on the role as the manager of educational programming, which the main programs are our LEAPS program, which is our welding certification program, where we've partnered with the National Coalition of Certification Centers, or NC3, also the skilled trades, and also manage our relationship with the FFA nationally.
That's very cool to hear. Now, what was the transition like to be working on the floor in automation and production to kind of a management and educational role? Was that natural? Did that take years in progress? What helped you prepare for that?
Yeah, great question. I would say, we talk about the leadership skills, and I think I had the opportunity to work for a lot of great managers at Lincoln. Also worked with my father and got to see a lot of different management styles. So I think that helped me. And as well as the FFA and coming up through the FFA. And it's truly, it truly is a leadership organization. And I think that's kind of the misconception, that you have to live on a farm where, some of the largest chapters are non-agricultural, but the leadership skills that they instill at that young age definitely have carried out through my whole career, whether it's work ethic, being on time, treat others like you wanted to be treated. You just stay with what you know, and you'll get there.
Now let's go back to that experience, because clearly your career center and your time in the FFA has made an impact on your career right now. What was your career center? What program were you involved in? Tell us about your time and your childhood in the FFA.
Sure. So as a junior in high school, I entered into the local career center here in Northeastern Ohio. And I actually went into the horticulture program. And that's where our FFA chapter was through, and ended up being the president of that chapter and traveling out to Kansas City as a senior for the national convention. And also, some of the things that I still remember today, we would go to Columbus, and we would study for all these horticulture contests where you got to, they ask you the name of the plants, the scientific name, and all that. So I could tell you one thing from that experience was the memory and the memorization and just staying focused, and really at that young age too, the competition of it. I mean, that type of stuff is going to be part of your career forever. And when you look at the welding side, you're going to be not, I wouldn't say competing, but you're always consistently taking welding tests and testing your knowledge. So that was able to develop that studying, the time management, things like that are very valuable still to this day.
Now, when did your mindset switch from horticulture and plant science to power systems? Because that's kind of a stark difference from going into a horticulture program at a career center to working at Lincoln Electric and doing manufacturing and welding. What was that switch like?
The part of the horticulture program and part of that curriculum was welding. So I had welded at home, and my father was a welder. So that part of it was one of the parts that I actually kind of steered towards. So when you look at horticulture in general, yeah, there's many different areas, but I mean, no matter where, welding is basically part of about anything you touch, whether it's the cars we drive in, the trains, the planes, the ag equipment, anything like that, cell phones. So I kind of gravitated toward that welding, and just happened to be fortunate enough that Lincoln Electric is headquarters here in Cleveland, Ohio, and it's the oldest continually running welding school in the world. And I decided to kind of focus on that aspect of it. And 26 years later, here we are.
Let's talk about the relationship between Lincoln Electric and FFA. It was clearly strong when you were in school, and it clearly is strong now. What opportunities do you provide to students, and what is your role in agricultural education? Is it certification, providing equipment to programs? What does that include?
So many different aspects that Lincoln's involved in with the FFA. One of them is the educational side. And we do a lot of train the trainer programs throughout the country. And a lot of those instructors that are in those programs are part of the ag program, because as you know, welding is part of the ag program, but sometimes the instructors don't get to focus on it as much as they would like. So we go in and we provide them the resources for them to be able to go back to their local school and provide the training on welding and learn something that they didn't know when they got there. We also support the National FFA during their convention, exhibiting, and get the students involved and kind of show them what the latest is in welding. The virtual reality simulators, the Vertex that we have, has been an integral part of training and tying those into programs to get students exposed to those. We also support the CDE events there at the National Convention and the AgMax and the power systems. And so we've been doing that for many, many years, but a lot of different aspects that we have. And, when you look at the FFA organization and you look at Lincoln, we've got a lot of the same common beliefs, and, you work hard, positive leadership, and those all aligned with the goals of Lincoln Electric as well.
Dan, could you tell us a little bit about your current responsibilities at Lincoln Electric and in your position?
Sure. So my current responsibilities at Lincoln are, the first one is managing our LEAPS program, and that is the Lincoln Electric Education Partner Schools. And that is our welding certification program, where we've partnered with the National Coalition of Certification Centers, or NC3, to provide institutions with a complete, basically turnkey when it comes to welding curriculum. There's a train the trainer part of it. And we also use it, we instill using the latest technology, utilizing the virtual welders, and really taking the welding programs to the highest level around the country. And those students can earn those, whether it's in a high school, or we also partner with the community colleges as well. So they can continue to earn these industry recognized credentials, so that when they go out to industry, they have something that not only shows that they have made a commitment to the welding industry, but that they have the skills needed for both the hands-on welding ability, but also they have the knowledge to go along with it. And that's the student that we're really trying to develop when they get into the industry, is connect industry with education, with that student that is a well-rounded student in all different aspects of welding, not just the hands-on, but that they understand why they're doing certain things and why they're not doing certain things. So that's the LEAPS program. The certifications are stackable. They can actually, decide to take maybe welding safety and then add SMAW or GTAW. They can take them in any order that they want, and kind of build their portfolio, if you will.
Now, what does that look like in the student perspective? So they're in an agricultural education program at their high school and they're looking to get their certificate, or they're in a career center. Would they come to a testing facility at Lincoln Electric, or how does that certification program work within the classroom?
So there's only one Lincoln Electric welding school in the country, and that's in Cleveland, Ohio, and it's been around since 1917. And it was started by request of the US government to support war times. It's the oldest continually running school in the world. And, so what we've done with this LEAPS program is, and that's the key, the P is the partnership. So when you come into the LEAPS program, you become an extension of the Lincoln Electric Welding School. So one of those things is that the instructor would attend to train the trainer, so that we can not only show them the curriculum, the nc3certs.com and all of the different resources they have, but we also validate their hands-on welding, and we also validate their knowledge. So they can go back and we can put our stamp on it that they can become an extension of the Lincoln Electric Welding School and promote and teach to the high standards that we are known for in the industry.
Now, what does a day in the life of the manager of educational programming look like? What will you be doing later today? What did yesterday look like? Kind of give us an in on some of the projects you're working on, or travel trips you have coming up.
Sure. So Travel is definitely a large part of it. Over the last year or so, it's slowed down, but I have basically been traveling for the company for about the last 20 years, and travel is a large part of it, and it's really starting to pick back up. I mean, we hold numerous. We were just in Wisconsin last week doing an instructor, a train the trainer program for instructors from all over the country, and we've got another one going on in Texas next week. And then we've also got some coming up in Cleveland and several other different places. So travel is definitely a part of it. And it's been really interesting over the many years to see the different parts of the country and see how welding education is how it's implemented all around the country. But otherwise, also I manage a skilled trades program. So we're doing a lot of trainings throughout the summer with the skilled trades. And when I talk about the skilled trades, that's the iron workers, the boiler makers, the carpenters, the sheet metal workers, the United Association, which is the plumbers and pipe fitters. Welding is part of every one of those trades. And so it's that one tool in their toolbox. So Lincoln, as a training partner of those particular trades, is there to be sure that their members are up to speed with all the latest technology as it comes out. So we introduced new products, we introduced new consumables, educational materials and resources at those programs annually, so that when the members get on a job site and they see a particular piece of equipment, they can say, you know what, I saw that last year or last week in a training program, and it's kind of new and up and coming, but that's what the contractors are going to start to use. So we're there to help them stay up to speed in the welding education. And also, I mean, they're a great resource for ag students coming out. Anybody looking in the welding industry, any one of those particular skilled trades that I mentioned are always looking for welders, and welding is part of each one of those.
What other careers are there at Lincoln Electric? So you're in educational programming. What kind of careers and employees do you have on the floor or in a management setting? And that would be kind of equate to all welding companies.
So yes, Lincoln is a large company here in Cleveland, and there's all kinds of different job opportunities. Yes, welding is one of them, but when you come into a company like Lincoln, there's, whether you're, maybe your background is a chemical engineer, mechanical engineer, we need engineers to develop the latest and new electrodes going forward, to develop the newest technology in welding power sources that are going to be more efficient, more productive, safer for our customers. So that's one side of it. We've got everything from order entry to working in the cafeteria to the metallurgists that work here in the plant, the destructive testing lab. And those are all different aspects that fall under welding. I think a lot of times when you say to somebody you're in the welding industry, they imagine that you're just sitting there and you're striking an arc and you're welding all day. That's far from the truth. When you talk about welding, it could be that you're doing the welding, but again, welding inspection is a huge part of the industry. Metallurgy and what happens to the materials when they heat and they cool around welding. The engineering side of it, the computer side of it. These new power sources these days are a computer-based machine. And so they take computer engineers, they can take people with a computer background to design them and update them and keep them going. The robotics side of it, the programming of it, the designing of the welding cells. So there's so many, the fume extraction and the environmental side of it, developing the welding booths. There's so many different aspects of welding. And if I had one message, I would say look into it further than just thinking about the person striking the arc, and look at where you can go from there. And that's really what I did. I started off as a welder, but then continued to look for different avenues within the welding industry. And that's kind of the path that I went, and it's been great.
I like that, because we've talked about our certifications and kind of the production side of welding, and then we have higher education. So what majors would you suggest for those who want to pursue a college degree and work in this industry? Is it computer science? Is it material science? What does that look like?
So great question. And I'll tell you, in looking back at my high school, I was hands-on. I couldn't wait to get up to the career center to start working in the greenhouses or welding or on the tractor. But I'll tell you what, looking back in the career that I'm in now, if there's one class that I would have focused on more, it would have been chemistry. Now that you get into the industry, there's so much around the chemistry, and the different elements that we work with that are, that's what makes up the materials that we weld. It's what makes up the electrodes that we're using and the coatings that are in them. So, to understand, what nickel does and what carbon does and the different gases, the helium and the argon, that is one area that if you're looking at going into the welding, and you don't have to get a full out degree in it, but some of any base knowledge and that type of stuff is excellent. And what I kind of did was I knew college wasn't the avenue that I wanted to go. And so I did get a lot of on the job training. But once I got into the industry and I realized kind of the path that I wanted to go, I would take a lot of technical courses that were practical to what I was doing. So when I took some math classes, it was relevant to welding. Right? How do you figure out deposition rate, travel speeds, heat input? Those are all mathematical formulas, but they're related to and practical for welding. And that type of stuff I can relate to. And so that's kind of the avenue I went. I took some metallurgical classes on metallurgy of the different materials, focused on different types of materials such as aluminum, stainless steel, and just kind of added those and kind of added them to my portfolio. The other one was the American Welding Society. I took the certified welding inspector exam in 2012, and that was really that is a very recognized credential within the welding industry, and also the certified welding educator. So those are the type of things I would highly recommend. As far as the math is always good. I just kind of related it to the practical math that associated it to the welding industry.
What do you enjoy most about your job? What makes you excited to wake up every day?
First of all, I enjoy working with my hands. So to be able to weld something and repair something or build something, I think that's very gratifying. The other part of it is working with people. I enjoy working with people. I enjoy teaching. And it just so happens I get to teach one of the trades that I enjoy doing, and that's welding. And that's not only to students, but it's also passing that on to other instructors or ag advisors on professional development. And that's really a lot of what we do now, or what I do in my role is the train the trainer and passing on this information to the instructors. So those are gratifying for sure.
Now, what is one misconception about your current position or a job in the welding industry?
So I would say the misconception of the welding industry is that it's dirty and just dirty and a type of job. And I think that's the farthest from the truth. Yes, there are some aspects and applications that may be true, but when you look at the welding industry in general, and you look at all the different aspects, like the metallurgical side, the weld inspection side of it, the engineering side of it, the computers that are involved with the new technology and the machines, the chemistry, the electrical components. There's so many different areas of welding than just what a lot of people see when that arc is being struck. And it takes support of all those different pieces to really keep that whole industry moving.
Now, what are some of those tools in your toolbox, like skills and talents, that made you successful in your career, or that you've had to develop over the past 26 years to get you to the place you are today?
Well, first of all, I think one of them is a mentor, and having somebody that has gone that path and can show you a lot of the different not only the hands-on, but and I think that's one of the biggest thing for students today, and that's what we instill with the LEAPS program is, a student that's coming into the welding industry, look at it more than just, yes, you do need to know how to weld, but you also need to focus on why you're doing certain things or why you're not doing certain things. And it's that knowledge base that goes with it, because when you get out of school and you start to get a job in the industry, you're going to become more valuable the more you know, as well as how you can weld. So I always say the difference between a good welder and a great welder is what's up here as well as what you can do with your hands.
The specific application of welding in agriculture, what does that look like? What kind of businesses and individuals is the welding industry helping, and what are some of those specific careers within agriculture?
So the welding industry in agricultural it really is a broad range. So when you think of it, I don't know of a farm that does not have a welder on their farm. So it starts with everything from repair. I mean, you've got to be able to repair stuff. You've got to be able to repair things out in the field. You have to understand how to identify what you're fixing. I mean, if you're working on a plow or a blade or something that may be a high steel or high carbon steel, you have to know how to identify that and pick the correct filler material to repair it correctly so that it doesn't break again. So the repair is one side, and that won't go away. I mean, there's always going to be a need for repairs. The other thing of it would be the production side of it, right? So the large companies that are manufacturing, whether it be implements or heavy equipment, welding is a huge part of that industry in making that equipment. I mean, it just wouldn't happen without welding. So it's a very broad range, everything from repair to the production of the implements and the equipment that we use.
Yes, when I talk to ag students, I think welding and being in the booth and being in the shop is one of their most fond memories, especially when we talk to alumni and supporters. For those current students interested in welding and working in the shop, what opportunities do you suggest to them? We talked about educational opportunities, but while they're still in high school, what are the specific opportunities they should take advantage of that will advance them in their career?
So my thought would be, when you're in high school, that's where you're really kind of exploring what type of avenue or where you want to go with your career. So if you look at welding, get into the ag program, try the welding. I know there's many different parts of the ag program, but pick one that you enjoy doing. And if it happens to be welding and you learned about some of the different processes and the safety and the fundamentals, and you enjoy doing it, that's when I would then recommend taking the next step and either looking at maybe a community college that's nearby and partner with them, or maybe a private type school, for example, Lincoln Electric or some of the other schools that may be close to where you live. In that way, what you're going to start to do now is you're going to start to focus and hone in on those skills because you're starting to narrow it down. And just like anything, welding takes practice. It takes repetition. So that's where you now can get more time and really start to focus on mastering the trade. And like I said, learning all the knowledge that goes with it and why you're doing certain things. That would be my recommendation. Get into it in high school, something you like to do, take it to the next step, maybe a community college or a private school, and really start to focus on that trade.
Now, when I think of careers, I also think about job availability, and we haven't touched on this yet. Are there jobs in welding available, and where specifically is that concentration within Ohio? Your company is based in Cleveland, but is there large facilities that are in need of agricultural welders within that industry?
Yeah, so when you look at welding, welding is part of so many different areas. There's not really, a welding company. There might be a fab shop and things like that, but when I talk to some young students that are up and coming and are interested in welding, that's why I recommend the trades because you may be an electrician. But I know electricians, and we partner with electricians that we offer them, they can get the welding certification. So welding is that extra tool in your toolbox, no matter what trade you go into, that is always going to be a viable, practical, hands-on skill that is going to be used in many different applications. So, you can get into a job that is focused strictly on welding, like maybe a pipe fab shop, things like that. The skilled trades, again, welding is part of all of those. And then you got the production side of it too. Production side of it is kind of a different avenue where, you're doing a lot of things, maybe repetition. over and over. Some people like that, some people don't. Or you might want to be an iron worker. You might be wanting to work on a structure and build a skyscraper where you're 20 stories up in the air and you're welding on columns and all that type of stuff. And that's an interesting career. So many vast options when it comes to welding. And then, in careers like that, you move up to the foreman, then you move up to the superintendent. And those are all different career paths, but it all started with that welding knowledge.
And those careers can be right out of high school, right? Right when they graduate, they can find a job and make their way up career position after position.
Absolutely. Right out of high school, if you have some welding experience, and if you're looking at some of the skilled trades, they have the apprenticeship programs where you can actually work and make money, and you're getting an education. So it's really a pretty good combination for somebody that's looking to get into the welding industry. And you asked, the locations. I'm talking, I'm from Northeastern Ohio. We do have a lot of manufacturing up here, but you look all over the state of Ohio, and there's a need for welders anywhere you go now. It's a really big demand for welders. And when you say welder, that's kind of a broad term. You're going to understand and again, it starts at the high school level in your ag program, when your introduction to SMAW, GMAW, GTAW, FCAW, and you're going to look and say, you know what, I like this one maybe more than this one, and maybe focus on within welding a specific process. So a lot of different opportunities when you get into that. We mentioned the aerospace. That would be where the GTAW comes in. When you look at outside field construction, that's where you get into the SMAW and some of the self-shielded flux cord wires. When you get into some pipe fab shops, that's where you get into the gas metal arc welding, gas tungsten arc welding. So, you kind of find which direction and what processes you actually enjoy doing the best.
Dan, what advice do you have for students who are interested in working in management in the welding industry and education, and being able to go out to places like National Convention and communicate with students, educators, and instructors about the opportunities for students, but also opportunities for growth in themselves as well?
Yeah, so my advice to the students, number one, is if you're interested in welding, continue with it and stay with it. A lot of these opportunities don't just happen overnight. I've been it took over 20 years to get into the management position that I'm in now. So my advice would be hone your skills, hone your knowledge, and those opportunities will come. You just have to stay with it and stick to your plan that you have going forward.
Dan, to the students sitting in a classroom trying to decide whether they want to continue working on their family farm or pursue some extra education, whether that's higher education or a trade in welding, what advice do you have to them? How do you help them decide a path for their future?
Yeah, so my advice to them would be to, once you realize that welding is the path you want to go into, the next step would be talk with your FFA advisor, and maybe before you really invest in a lot of money to see if that is for you, go and shadow with the local company and see what a day looks like for somebody in that company. Welcome to come to Lincoln and to our manufacturing facility and look at all the different aspects of welding, whether it's the actual production welder, maybe it's the metallurgical person that's doing the testing, maybe it's one of our engineers. So I would recommend looking at that, and then if it's something that they want to pursue, then hone in and maybe look at that community college or Lincoln Electric Welding School to really focus on that trade. And that is where your career is going to start.
I think one of the most important things student can do in high school right now is talk to people in the industry. How should they go prepared into that situation? They're going to go to a facility, they're going to tour, maybe they'll get to try some things out. How can they be most successful and gain every perspective and every bit of knowledge going into that?
Well, I think for the student to see firsthand the different operations that are involved in somewhere where welding is taking place, and they can actually see that, okay, this person is, they're actually doing the welds. This person is looking at the prints, right? I mean, so print reading, getting into print reading in high school and understanding welding symbols, that type of stuff, and how it actually relates when you get into the field. Now a lot of times, the papers are gone. They may be using an iPad and looking at prints, but learning those skills, like I said, more than just the welding skills, but understanding blueprint reading, understanding, I should say print reading, and also understanding the welding symbols and how they relate that to a practical application is very important. And I think they'll start to begin to put together their roadmap of, where they're at and where they would like to be down the road. And maybe it's welding education. Maybe they want to take those skills that they learned, get some field experience or get some practical experience, and then maybe pass that knowledge on to the next generation.
If you could leave one last thing with those watching right now, what would it be about your career or the industry itself?
Yeah, my advice is, number one, the path that I have taken, I wouldn't change anything. It's taken a long time, but you know what? It's a career that I really enjoy, and it's a trade that you can take with you no matter where you go. You can use it on the farm. You can use it anywhere you go. There's somebody that's always looking for a welder, and to have that technical ability to do that is something that you'll have forever. So stay with it. Like I said, things don't happen just overnight. Stay with the trade, and those opportunities will come to you at the end.
Well, Dan, thank you for taking the time to talk to me. I'm thankful that Ohio FFA members have the opportunity to learn about your career.
Thanks for having me, Jake.
FFA develops our potential and helps us discover our talent through hands-on experiences, which gives us tools to achieve real-world success. If you're interested in pursuing a similar career path to the one highlighted in this video, there's a couple ways in which you can get started. One option to dive in and learn more is through a supervised agricultural experience. While completing an SAE, you will cultivate valuable employability skills while gaining work experience as a volunteer, paid employee, or maybe even as your own boss. To learn more, talk to your ag teacher or visit saeforall.org. In addition, through career development events, you can put your knowledge to the test. Ohio FFA offers more than 40 CDEs. Here are a few CDEs that can help you further explore this career path. Ask your FFA advisor for more information about how to get involved. As FFA members, it's important for us to start making these connections and finding future possibilities that align with our interests. I hope that you enjoyed this episode of Ohio FFA Career Connection, which is made possible by Ohio Corn and Wheat. Thanks for tuning in.